Assalamu alaikum. All right, so today we are starting with chapter number 5, which is stakeholders of a business. So, the simplest definition of a stakeholder is anyone who can impact or be impacted by the activities of the organization, or anyone who can affect or be affected by the activities of the organization is a stakeholder. Now, an organization can have either a positive impact on its stakeholders, or it can also negatively impact its stakeholders. Similarly, even stakeholders can impact the business positively or negatively. And there are many stakeholder groups that a business has. And the business owes some rights and responsibilities towards the stakeholder groups. So कौन कौन से stakeholder groups होते हैं वो हम देख लेते हैं. All right. So the first stakeholder group that we're going to talk about are customers. So customers कौन होते हैं? They're people who are going to buy the product or services of a business, right? So what kind of responsibilities do we owe to a customer? Obviously, the customer is concerned about the quality of goods and services that they're being offered, right? And they're also concerned about the price. So they would want durable product, quality product, a good design, good customer service, and also reasonable prices. So, and of course, also their concerns are about the advertisement that is being done, because if the advertisement is not accurate, the customers can end up buying products that are not useful to them, right? So that's why the advertisement that's being done should be accurate so that the customers are not misled. Now, what are the benefits of accepting these responsibilities? If the business accepts these responsibilities towards the customers, the benefit would be that their customers are going to be loyal, right? And loyal customer is going to keep on coming back to the business. And if they keep on coming back, that means that the business is going to have recurrent sales. And also, a lot of businesses grow by word of mouth. That's like free marketing. So one customer buys your product and they really like your product, and then they refer it to somebody else, right? So that's also one advantage of having loyal customers. All right. So next are a business's responsibility towards its suppliers. So suppliers are the people or the business that the business is buying their maybe raw material from, or they're buying their supplies from or goods from, and so on, right? And obviously, the business is the customer of their supplier. So the suppliers would want a long-term relationship with that business, and they would want recurrent purchases from them. And they would also want to be paid on time and not to be taken advantage of, and not to be, um, take, क्या कहते हैं उसको कि exploited, right? So they would want fair prices for their raw material and goods. And if a business accepts these responsibilities, the benefit that they're going to gain is that they can get good credit terms from their suppliers, and that will make the cash flow or the working capital of that business better, right? So, in case a business, for example, is going through a financial crunch or a cash crunch, they can just get the goods or the raw material from their supplier on credit. So that also helps businesses, run their operations smoothly. Then we've got another stakeholder group, which is employees. So the responsibility that the business has towards its employees is that number one, you have to understand that in a lot of developed countries and even developing countries, there are laws about employment, right? So these laws govern how the employees are going to be treated at workplace, how they cannot be discriminated against, how they will be giving equal opportunities, how they have to be paid at least a minimum wage, and also the working conditions in which the employees are going to work. So there are very strict laws regarding all of these factors, right? So by default, the employees have to be responsible towards their employees. But apart from just following the law, they should, make sure that their employees feel valued, their employees feel safe at work. So these are and of course, they feel that their jobs are secure and they're not going to be fired without a reason, and so on and so forth. Benefits of accepting these responsibilities towards your employees is that your employees are going to be loyal. You will have low labor turnover. Labor turnover is when the employees that leave your organization within a year. And if your labor turnover is high, that's not good for the company, because that increases the cost of recruitment and selection, and it also increases the training cost, because if your employees leave very often, you have to hire new employees and you also have to train them. So that's costly for the organization. And also, if your employees are loyal and they're motivated, they will work better, they will be more efficient. That's going to save your organization costs as well and increase the efficiency and productivity of your organization. Then responsibility towards local community. So what is the local community? Local community is, so for example, your business is operating in a certain area, right? So for example, this is your business. Let me just use a new page. Okay, so this is your business, and this is the immediate area where your business is operating, right? So the people who are living in this area surrounding your business is the local community. Now, how does the local community get affected by the activities of the business? So the benefits that the local community could get are job creation. Obviously, if a business is operating in a certain area, that area is going to develop as well. The infrastructure will become better so that it improves the quality of life of your community as well, right? But then there are also disadvantages, and the disadvantages could be, of course, there could be pollution because of the activities of the business. There could be uh, so effect on the environment, different environmental impacts. Traffic could increase, and yeah, so these could be the drawbacks of having a business operating in an area, right? So the local community does get affected. And if the business wants to accept responsibility towards the local community, they can give back to the local community in form of maybe doing something for the local community, like maybe making playgrounds, or setting up some water filtration plant so that the local community has clean water, or setting up some kind of a healthcare clinic, a free clinic, or something which helps the local community in one way or the other. Then we have the government. Government is also one of the stakeholders of the business. Now, what is the relationship between the government and the business? So it's a two-way relationship. Now, the government provides a certain environment for the business to operate in, and that environment includes the economic environment, the technological environment, and also the um, economic and technological, the political or legal environment in which your business is going to operate. And that is definitely going to have an impact on the business. So the laws that are being made by the government, for example, laws regarding minimum wage or laws regarding employment or laws regarding environmental protection that are going to impact the business. And the businesses also impact the government because businesses create jobs and they reduce unemployment. And that is one of the macroeconomic objectives of the government. So when businesses are up and running and they're operating, they are creating jobs and they are reducing unemployment. So the purpose of the government is served. Also, the businesses, they pay taxes to the government. So if the business is paying taxes to the government, the taxes are the main source of income for the government. And this is the income that is going to be spent by the government on running the country or on infrastructure or on building schools or on the education system or on the healthcare system or on building roads and bridges and so on, right? So that's how businesses also have an impact on the government. And if the businesses show responsibility towards the government, they will be following the laws that are made by the government. They will get the proper licenses that are needed to operate, and they will be accepting responsibility towards the society as a whole as well. And how does that benefit the businesses? Because if businesses are upright and they're responsible and they're legally responsible, the government also supports such businesses by providing subsidies and government grants and so on. All right. So next we are going to talk about corporate social responsibility. So what is the concept of corporate social responsibility? All right. So the word or the term corporate social responsibility, if we break it down, so corporate means companies, or we can say larger businesses. And social responsibility means that these companies or businesses have a social responsibility. They have a responsibility towards the society in which they are operating. All right. So we were talking about the corporate social responsibility. This is something that a lot of people, uh, a lot of people and tourists and economists, they think that it's just a marketing gimmick. It's just marketing for a business to appear ethical and socially responsible in the eyes of the customers. And it doesn't really um, have a lot of value or doesn't add a lot of value to the society as a whole. But a lot of work is being done on social responsibility. So much so that nowadays companies, they do integrated reporting. And in their reports, in their annual report each year, they have a separate report for CSR, for the CSR activities that a business is performing. And even larger companies, they've got separate departments that are focused on all the social CSR activities that a company does and how it can improve their image in the eyes of the public. So it's something which is really, really debated about nowadays. Anyhow, the concept is that a company, it does not operate on its own, it operates in an environment. And the company is benefiting from the environment. It has employees that are working for the company are from the society that the company is operating in. It gets its raw material from that society or the environment. It profits from that society because its customers are in that society and so on, right? Now, The concept of CSR is that the company, since it's benefiting so much from the society, it needs to give back to the society. It needs to give back. And there are various ways in which a company can give back, right? So it could be that the company is making sure that, it does not impact the environment in a negative way. So it makes some environmental efforts like using renewable energy sources, right? Or, for example, recycling, or, for example, lean production to make sure that less resources are used, right? So, one way in which a company can give back to the society is by making environmental efforts, or, for example, planting trees. Then it can do some philanthropic activities as well. So, philanthropic activities are when you are doing something for the humans to give benefits to the humans, for example, setting up orphanages or free health clinics or water filtration plants so that people have clean water to drink and so on, right? Or some kind of charity work or giving donations for a certain cause like education, right? Or it can um, further, for example, fair, fairly treat employees or treat them well or give them equal opportunities, or it can do fair trade with their suppliers and not to exploit their suppliers. So the concept of social responsibility is that the company does not only owe responsibility towards the shareholders, and its only purpose should not be to earn profits for the shareholders, but they also have to take into account all of the stakeholders that get affected by its activities, right? So, whenever a business is taking some kind of a decision, they have to make sure that all the stakeholder groups get positively impacted and they do not have some negative impact on them. That's the concept of social responsibility. Now, the problem is when we talk about stakeholders, different stakeholders have different objectives, right? And each stakeholder group is expecting something different from the business. Like, for example, what does a shareholder want from a company? So shareholder would want high dividends. Shareholder would want the share price of their shares to increase, more profits, right? What would employees want? Employees would want employees would want good salaries. Now, the problem is that if you're giving good salaries to the employees, then your costs are increasing. And if costs increase, profits go down. And if profits go down, now there's a conflict between the the, the the objectives of both these stakeholder groups. And this is something that happens very often in business, that the objectives of two stakeholder groups are in conflict with each other, and that's where the managers or the directors have to decide how to go about it. So which stakeholder group is more valuable or more important, and you have to prioritize between the stakeholder groups in order to make decisions. All right, so I'll give you another, maybe a few examples of such conflicts that take place between different stakeholder groups. So let's talk about managers and customers. So managers would want to increase sales so that they can get bonuses, right? And to increase sales, they could suggest to increase the selling price of the product. On the other hand, customers would want reasonably priced products. So if the selling price of the product is increased, then customers will be disgruntled, right? So that's another conflict that can arise between two stakeholder groups. Another conflict could be, for example, the business wants to earn more profits, which is why they want to reduce their cost of production and they want to buy cheap material. Now, cheap material might be bad for the environment. The public, on the other hand, would not want the business to pollute by using cheap material, right? So again, there's a conflict between two stakeholder groups. So it is for the managers and the directors of the business to prioritize between these stakeholder groups to understand which stakeholder group is absolutely necessary for the business to run, right? So more importance will be given to the objectives of those stakeholder groups which are more important for the business or which the business cannot do without. All right, so let's talk about the impact on stakeholders of changing business objectives. In the last chapter, chapter number 4, we talked about how business objectives can change over time, right? So a business, if its objective initially in the initial years is survival, that's not the objective that's going to stay in the long term. In the long term, the business would want to grow, right? Their objective can change. And then if the business grows, the next objective could be that maybe they want to become the market leaders. So over time, the objectives of the business change, right? And when the objectives of the business are going to change, it is going to have an impact on its on its stakeholders, right? So an example that is given here is of Nokia. So when Nokia experienced a collapse in 2013, instead of aiming for growth, it was forced to fight for survival. Because I think I've given this example before as well of Nokia and why it failed, because they were not ready to adapt to the change in technology that was taking place in the environment, and all the other mobile companies were adapting to change while Nokia was still stuck with their old technology, right? But anyhow, because the business was going down drastically, their aim changed from growth to survival. 10,000 jobs were cut, and it sold a large part of the business to Microsoft. Then another example is Body Shop. Body Shop has one of its major objective, social and environmental change. But due to difficulty in difficult trading conditions, it was forced in 2013 to focus on cost cutting to achieve profitability and had to close some shops. Even though Body Shop, it became famous for the fact that it's an environmentally friendly business and it does not test on animals, and they do fair trade with their suppliers and so on. So it became famous for the fact that it was in a very ethical business, right? But even they had to change their certain objectives because they were not able to achieve profitability. So over time, businesses do change their objectives, and the change in objectives does have an impact on the different stakeholder groups. Like for example, when 10,000 jobs were cut, obviously the stakeholder group that was impacted were the employees of the company, right? And when the Body Shop changed its objectives, main objectives from social and environmental objectives to profit, obviously the environment would get impacted, the public would get impacted, and so on. So that's all about stakeholders. So again, I'll just go through briefly again. Let me just revise the chapter again. So it's about this chapter is about different stakeholder groups that have an impact on the activities of the business, and businesses have an impact on these stakeholder groups. There are different types of stakeholder groups that a business has. For example, customers. Customers are people who buy from the business. They buy the goods and services that the business is providing, and their main focus is, or their main objective is, to get good quality goods and services at reasonable prices. And of course, the impact that they can have on a business is that if they stop buying from the business is going to ultimately fail. So the business has to make sure that their customers are not disgruntled and they are satisfied. A second stakeholder group could be the employees of the business. So employees are the people who are working for the organization. And if these people are motivated and they are providing good, or they're making good products, good quality products, or providing good services, then the customers are going to be happy and the business is going to be a success. But if the employees are demotivated, they will not be providing good services or good products or good quality products, and the customers can be disgruntled, and there will be no efficiency in the work of in the operations of the business, and the business can suffer losses. So it is important to keep the employees loyal and satisfied towards the organization. Then you have suppliers. So suppliers are the people that the business buys either their raw material from, or their supplies from, or maybe the finished goods from, in case if your business is a retailer, right? And suppliers are, what do they want from a business? They want fair trade, they want recurrent orders, and the business would want good terms with the supplier and good credit terms, so that if the business is going through some kind of a financial crunch, they can order goods and pay the supplier later. Then we have the government. So the government, yes, is a stakeholder as well. The government can impact the business by the political environment that they provide businesses, the economic environment, the infrastructure that is being provided to businesses, and the law that the a law that the government makes. The laws that the government makes impacts businesses, almost all the businesses in the country, right? So laws such as maybe the employment law, the minimum wage law, and also um, maybe environmental law, these are going to affect all the businesses that are operating in the country. And how do businesses impact the government? So the businesses, they create jobs, which reduces unemployment. And the less the unemployment, the more taxes the people are going to pay. And these taxes are the income of the government, which then they are going to spend on education, infrastructure, healthcare, and technology, and so on, right? Then we've got the local community. So local community are the people who are living in the immediate surroundings of the business. And how does the business impact them? The business creates jobs for them. The area in which the business is operating is obviously the business would have to develop it to make sure that there's internet there and there are roads there for transportation and so on. So the area would become more developed, and that's going to help the local community. On the other hand, the business can also create problems for the local community, such as pollution and traffic and so on. So that's how the local community gets impacted. So, like I said, that stakeholders can either impact or can affect or be affected by the activities of the organization. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and we will do chapter number 6 tomorrow. Bye bye.